In today's financial world, it's easy to feel lost, overwhelmed by headlines, market swings, and conflicting advice. But retirement doesn't have to be a guessing game. With the right plan and the right guidance, you can move forward with purpose and confidence. Join us as Tom Mosley, founder of Mosley Wealth Management, cuts through the noise to help you focus on what really matters: protecting your savings, building reliable income, and making smart choices for your future. This is Right on the Money with Tom Mosley.
Hey everybody, welcome on into the program. We are thrilled to have you along once again for Right on the Money with our good friend Tom Mosley, president of Mosley Wealth Management. Hope you all are doing well as we break down some of the most important aspects of your money, your retirement, Tom. And I told you I had a story for you right out of the gate. You like to talk about the retirement blueprint. We're going to get to it. We moved into our new home that is a 115-year-old stone cottage. We finally got everything in. And my partner during the day couldn't find me. And he came out back and he was looking for me. And I was doing some gardening and I was hanging wreaths in the little summer house out back. And he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "You have to let me nest. I'm hanging wreaths." And he said, "Well, yes, I want you to hang wreaths, but there's other things that, we need to do." And I said, "Like what?" And he said, "Walls. We need a wall in between the new closet and the bathroom. And we've got to get the plumbing in or we're not going to have a bathroom." And Tom, you talk about the retirement blueprint, and if you're listening and you're in a relationship, sometimes there's one of you that wants to put the foundation in first, and then there's Dana, and I want to put the bird feeders up in the wreaths.
Right, right. We all have our special interests, don't we?
We absolutely do, and we're here to help break down for our listeners why it's important to have the foundation first, and especially, Tom, as wonky as things are in the markets right now, I don't have to tell people. You turn on the news, and it seems like the world is on edge. And so let's get right into it. We know that conflicts, all of those things out of our control, disrupt the markets. They create risks for your portfolio. And let's get into it, Tom. I know you're getting phone calls on this. People are saying, how, do I need to be worried about my 401k? What does this mean for me?
Well, you know what? A lot of our prospects, people who aren't with us yet, are making those phone calls to us. It's amazing what happens when you do have that retirement blueprint. You and your partner need to sit down and get a blueprint as to what's next and what's next, okay? Because you build that house like in the backyard right now. We're redoing our backyard. And I have been so frustrated. They have been working for 3 months.
Oh, gosh.
And finally, Friday, the guy came to me and told me, he says, "We're not going to dig anymore. We're not going to go down anymore. We're going to go up now. We're
I
building."
want to start seeing progress.
That's right. But I do know, and I have seen, there are so many pipes in my backyard that you can't see at all right now. There's pipes for electricity. There's pipes for water.
Yeah.
Because all of that foundation had to be laid before they can start laying what you see. It's like the tip of the iceberg is what you see, but they've done so much work underneath. Same way with a retirement blueprint. Once you have one of those and the stability of that, you're not so up and down. But my goodness, if you don't have a plan, think about what's happening. I don't know what's happening the day you're going to be listening to this show specifically, but when we're recording this show, last week there was Israel and Iran were going at each other's throat, bombing every day, sending missiles every night. Then last week we sent over some missiles and it all stopped. And then Iran said, "Well, we're going to shut off the flow of oil through the Strait of Hormuz." And all the oil prices shot up. And if you were afraid and if you were reactionary and if you were going to react to that, you would have probably gone and done something. But the next day, they said, "Okay, let's make peace. Let's be nice." And right now, while we're making this show, they're making nice. But who knows by the time you're going to be listening to this show? They might have, tried to attack us in some other way. There's always going to be something. I used to have a pastor who said, you're always in a conflict, you're coming out of a conflict, or you're about to head into a conflict. That's called life, okay?
That's great life advice. It is.
It is, and I'm just telling you out there that if you are daily concerned with the news, first of all, I think the best advice I could give you, shut off the news.
Turn it
You know
off,
what I mean?
Tom. I've been in the broadcast news business 30 years. Shut it off. We go to bed and we watch nature shows now. I can't
Yeah.
because it's not good for your mental health and it's not good for knee-jerk reactions with respect to your retirement.
Right. And I know everybody's got their quote source, but if you turn to channel 40, you get one thing. If you flip it to channel 41, you get the exact opposite of views on everything. So just shut it off. It doesn't mean anything, but you do need a solid plan that's going to be there through the ups and downs, because the one thing I do know about life, I'm 72 years old. The one thing I do know about life is they're going to be ups and downs. And so you plan on it. People do come in sometimes, Dana, and they say, do you think the market's going to go up or down? And I say, yeah,
Yes.
pretty sure it's going to go up or down. And you need a plan that's going to be good for you in place and give you that ability to sleep well at night, whether it goes up or whether it goes down.
Can you talk about the importance of staying diversified and how you help your clients navigate through those waters, securing stable income streams right now, especially if you're knocking at the door of retirement, or maybe like my parents, you have just retired. How important is it for diversification? And then also, Tom, where you start drawing that money down first?
Well, when you're 40 years old and you think about diversification, you're thinking about, well, I should be in stock and maybe a little bit of bonds and maybe a little bit of real estate. And you're thinking about the assets that you're in. When you're in retirement and you really think about diversification and you think about building a plan, when you're in retirement, the key thing about retirement is you need to diversify among income. You need to diversify among your investments. You need to diversify among your tax buckets. You say, what do you mean by that? You need some money that's taxable account, that's
Yeah.
in a taxable account. You need some money that's probably tax deferred. You need that tax advantaged account of the Roth that the tax has already been paid. You'll never have to pay tax on it again, because when you go to draw money, depending on the winds of the world, and that's WINDS, okay, depending on how the laws are flowing at that time, the tax structures flowing at that time, you need to be diversified so you can get different things out of different buckets. And that's what I see as diversification that brings stability. And the biggest switch that people don't make, Dana, is they don't make that big switcheroo from they're always thinking when they're 40, 45, 50 about their lump sum.
Yep.
But in retirement, it's your income that makes the difference. Do I have enough sufficient growing income to last me 20, 25, 30 years? That's the biggest thing that you need.
It's why we need you to text VISIT right now to 855-526-1600. It is what they help you do at Mosley Wealth Management. Build that foundation before you start hanging wreaths, folks. 855-526-1600. And, my dad always says, and still does, Tom, I'm blessed to still have him in my life, that you can only control the things that you can control. So when we start talking about supply chain issues and oil and inflation, we can't control those things. But if you have a solid financial plan, a retirement blueprint that you help your clients with, then you're not as concerned. You're not getting those phone calls from your clients, Tom, because they know they have that foundation.
Well, and the thing of it is, it's not just what's happening, on the other side of the world. It's Social Security. Are they going to reduce Social Security?
Yeah.
You can't control that. If they do reduce Social Security in 8 years, as they're predicting that they're going to have to, unless Congress changes the
Sure.
law and changes the structure, the question is not, are they going to do it or not? The question is, what are you going to do about it in your life? So those are the key things there.
Do you tell your clients, Tom, that Social Security is basically, think of it like icing on the cake? Now, you worked for that. You squirreled that money away your entire working life, and I'm going to be angry, and a lot of people are going to be angry if we don't get all of that money back. But really, with your retirement income, is that, I don't want to say the very last leg, but is that kind of something over to the side that should never be counted as a main source of income?
Well, that is the hope. Okay. That's what we hope. We hope that Social Security is the icing on the cake. But unfortunately, I have a lot of people who come to our Social Security workshops and on a weekly basis, and that's what they've got to live off of. So hopefully, you're going to, if you're in your 40s, your 50s, and you're listening to me, I'm just encouraging you to start saving for retirement so that you do put yourself in that Dana position, like you just said, where Social Security is the icing on the cake. Because if it's the cake, then it's a little bit, a lot out of your control.
Right.
Because you've just got to take it at the optimal time for you, and you hope it's still there, and you hope Congress doesn't change, and there's hope, hope, hope involved rather than plan, plan, plan. And we like to always say hope is not a strategy when it comes to retirement. But now, if you're sitting out there and you've got a nice little nest egg, then you can treat Social Security as the icing on the cake. And it's good icing. Don't get me wrong. It is a very healthy payment in what's coming out of Social Security. A lot of people, they, so to speak, poo-poo on Social Security, if we can use that word, and they don't really appreciate Social Security, but it is a very healthy payment that comes, and it's appreciated by everybody who gets it. But you cannot absolutely, commit that it's always going to be there.
So all of your investments, if you think about it, I want you to think about those. And for those of you who are lucky enough to have a pension, a 401k, then Social Security over to the side. What do you do with those accounts in good times, in bad times? And then when you are ready to start spending that money, you've worked so hard your entire life, when it is time to retire and live your retirement dream, what do you do next? And that is why Tom is here. We are here each week to help you answer those very important questions. Please text VISIT to 855-526-1600, 855-526-1600. Tom, you help people with these important questions every single day. You've done it for years. And I always tell people, Tom, don't be embarrassed. There's no question too big or too small. If you think you've made a mistake, we all have. I urge you to give Tom a call.
You only get to retire once. You better do it right.
855-526-1600, and let us help you do just that. We're back with much more straight ahead.
When markets shake, your confidence shouldn't. Tom Mosley and the team at Mosley Wealth Management are here to help you stay steady no matter the storm. Call 855-526-1600 to talk strategy and build a plan that's ready for whatever comes next. Quarters, just 25 cents. That's hardly anything, right? But the team at Mosley Wealth Management see quarters a little differently. A quarter is a lot when it's a quarter of your retirement savings. Do you want to pay 25% or more in taxes during your retirement? Mosley Wealth Management can create a plan to help address that. If the only time you think about taxes is when you file them, you don't have a tax strategy. But it's not too late to get one with help from the Mosley Wealth Management team. With more than 30 years of experience, they can help make sure you're not paying a quarter, dime, or even a penny more than you should. Call Mosley Wealth Management now at 855-526-1600 to schedule your personalized tax strategy session at one of their 5 California locations. A quarter saved is a quarter earned. Call 855-526-1600 now. Investment advisory services offered by duly registered individuals through Mosley Wealth Management, Inc., license number 0K76766. Firm may not give tax advice.
Hey everyone, welcome on back to the program. We are so glad to have you along for Right on the Money. I'm your host, Dana Wright. We are sitting here with President of Mosley Wealth Management, Tom Mosley, and we want to remind everyone the phone number right out of the gate. Please give us a call as you hear things that are important to you with respect to your money and your retirement and your behavior, which we're going to get to this segment. And the number is 855-526-1600. And Tom, that number's good, whether you're listening in Encino, Arcadia, Ontario, you're in Anaheim with the main office, San Diego, you have a huge reach out there.
You know what? We had people call in last week from Blythe, way out right on the Arizona border.
Wonderful.
So, wherever you are, we are here for you.
Okay, so one of the things, Tom, I want to talk about is behavior and psychology in finance. And people might be thinking, well, what does that have to do with my money? It has everything to do with your money, especially when there are uncertain factors out there beyond your control, global events, inflation, all of those things, Tom. And I know you've seen every single, you're part financial advisor, you're part psychologist when it comes to folks and their money, right?
Yeah, I've been doing it 30 years. So I've seen a lot of the old saying, water go under the bridge, if you understand what I'm saying. I've
Yeah.
seen a lot of things. And I made a statement. I was speaking to a group of advisors back earlier this year and in New Orleans. And I made the statement. I said, you know what? One of the biggest things we do is protect people
From
from
themselves.
themselves, not the market and not other things and not people who are trying to steal their money, but from themselves because people listen to the news, people hear some great new shiny object idea and they want to chase that shiny object or something, or they get fearful over something. And sometimes just being a calming influence for people is the very best thing we can do for them when it comes to helping them with their money because people's behavior runs the gambit all over the place, Dana.
Well, I'm glad that you brought up the shiny object because one of the things we're going to talk about is herd behavior. And that's one of the traps that you can get into as you head toward retirement, where you hear that a bunch of people are doing the next big thing, and then you feel like you should too. That could be a third car garage, a fourth car garage, a swimming pool in the backyard, or it could be, remember when Bitcoin came out, Tom, or people wanted to invest in the fake art with the monkey on it. Do you remember that? People were spending millions of dollars for a computer file of a photo of a monkey. And to this day, I don't understand that.
Well, if you're a crook and you start something like that, I understand it because that's what they're trying to do. And somebody made a lot of money on that, Dana, but it wasn't the people who invested. Let your neighbor make a ton of money and then maybe get on it a little bit late. My dad used to always say this about cars. They would come out with new engines in cars. It's back when we had Ford, Chevrolets, and Dodges, just the three to choose from.
Yeah.
But my dad would come out and say, never buy a new car when they've just come out with a new engine. Let them get the kinks out of it for a year or two. In investing our clients' money, Dana, am really reluctant to jump on the next big, greatest thing, even if it comes out from an insurance company or an investment company. Let it prove itself. What is its track record? My theory is you've saved all of your money, all of your life to retire, and that's all you've got. And that's all you've got to live on the rest of your life. So I don't want to lose your money. So we're pretty reluctant to jump on new shiny objects until maybe we see that they're valid.
So one of the things on the list here, Tom, is overconfidence bias, or the tendency to see ourselves in a better position than we are really in. And there are people that will trick themselves into thinking they can beat the market. We're starting to see advertisements on this on cable news
Oh,
channels. You want to get into investing, and studies actually
yep.
show that overconfident investors tend to trade more frequently, resulting in higher transaction costs and lower returns. If someone could beat the market, Tom, you'd be a billionaire.
Well, and you put somebody with a British accent or somebody who's a former actor or
Yes.
a celebrity on and they endorse it and you're not reading that fine print that says this person is endorsing this and they're getting paid to endorse this and they don't know what the heck they're talking about. I mean, it doesn't say that last part, but that's what they're talking about
It
sometimes.
should.
And so they endorse something. Yeah, it should. It really should because you then get on it because you like that show that was filmed in Hawaii and the guys, promoting the reverse mortgages, or you like what I think is funny, Dana, is when the market is down, they have all these gold commercials ready to run
Yep.
and they want to run the gold and the silver commercials whenever the market is down. And that is preying, not Praying, but Preying on people who remember when we used to have a gold standard. You go back and look at the price of gold over the past 20 years, and you'd have to have an argument. If you look at the graph of gold and the graph of the stock market, they run side by side. Gold is a commodity anymore. It's not a standard anymore. So, I always ask ask people, hey, when times really gets tough, Tom, don't you need gold? And I said, no, you need a garden. You need a fruit tree, because you can't eat gold. And I'm not being facetious when I say that, in that, yeah, people have made money in gold, but they've made money in the stock market as well because they run parallel. So be careful, not just chasing the shiny object, but the old reliable things that aren't really what they used to be anymore.
855-526-1600. Or please go to the website, Tom, at mosleywealthmanagement.com. You can find a wealth of information about all of the things that we break down on the program here. I want you to tell me some stories, Tom, because I know there are people who have come into your office, maybe with a massive amount of wealth or assets, and maybe they are in a time of crisis where someone has passed away and they want to zig, and you help them zag because they are going down the wrong path. And let me give you a quick emotional, devastating mistake that I made 15 years ago when I was going through my divorce. A good friend of mine was in finance, and instead of waiting and doing things the correct way during my divorce, we pulled money out of my 401k. And no one explained to me that there were massive tax implications. I was very young at the time, Tom. I had 4 young children, and I was just trying to stay afloat. No one explained to me the massive implications of making such an emotional decision during a time of extreme stress.
Let me tell you something that just happened in my office just last week. Now, I've been doing this for over 30 years, but I've seen this over and over. But this is a particular instance where this husband and wife came into us. They came about 5 years ago. They became great clients. And, the gentleman wasn't as involved in the financial decisions as the wife was. And then all of a sudden, about 3 or 4 months ago, the wife passed away. So the husband, the surviving spouse, the husband came in recently and met with one of our advisors and brought along a relative. And all of a sudden, we found out that, in fact, we got a letter from this relative, and it was signed by the client, that this relative, who had no financial background, no understanding of finances, and had not any resources on their own. But what they did was they saw in uncle here, okay, in that situation, they saw an uncle, they saw a pot of cash. And so we got a letter that's saying, freeze our accounts, don't trade anything. We're going to be moving it out and doing our own. And, we've really helped this couple in a tremendous way. I know the lady, were she still alive, would be going livid. So what I'm saying is, you've got to be careful in an emotional time. Think about it. You talked about just a minute or two ago, Dana, when you go through a divorce, when you go through the loss of a loved one, a child or a spouse, and you go through those things, when you start making major financial decisions because you're listening to somebody who has no financial advice, but emotionally they're there for you, emotionally, that child, that nephew in this case, or sometimes it's a child that has nothing and they see what you have as theirs, so they want to sort of get their fingers around it. And I, you hate to talk about things like this, but this is the reality of life. You've got to be really careful with your behavior and making emotional decisions. I always tell people, whenever something happens, don't make a major move for 6 months. Just let things settle, because you're I remember one time I had a puppy one time. We lived out, it was a dog by that time, but we lived out on a highway and on the farm, so you couldn't pin up your dogs, and this dog ran out accidentally and ran right in front of a car and got slightly hit, but it just ran off like it didn't know what to do and was running in all kind of different directions. And I see people, Dana, do that time and time and time again. And that's what we offer when we say, come in, You say often, call that number 855-526-1600. Tell us on there. You can go to a voice recording. You can tell us you want to visit. You can text that number and text visit, and we'll call you back when we get into the office at the first of the week, because we show these shows or we broadcast these shows on the weekend. What we're going to do with you is sit down with you when you not just got hit by a Mack truck, okay? And we're going to help build you a retirement plan that's going to work while you're alive, while you're both alive if you're married, while one of you is still left. And then even after you're both gone, the plan is going to address all of those things when you're in your right mind, you're thinking, you're not emotionally involved, your behavior hasn't entered into it to help you make drastic mistakes. So text that number and text visit, or call that number and just leave us a message, and we will call you back when we get back into the office on Monday morning, and we will set up a time for you to come in and sit down and put together. Now we go back to the blueprint that we talk about all the time. We will put together a retirement blueprint for you that will lay out your plan and will give you that ability to sleep well at night. And so you won't have to make emotional decisions. You'll make them when you're rational, logical, and in your right mind.
Because, Tom, it's sad, but fraud is a very real thing, folks. Please text 855-526-1600. Text visit or call 855-526-1600 and let the phenomenal team at Mosley Wealth Management help you. We are back with much more on Right on the Money, straight ahead.
Crafting your legacy is like planting seeds for a future forest. Let the team at Mosley Wealth Management help you nurture that vision so it grows strong. Call 855-526-1600 to get started.
Social Security is changing, and those changes could affect your finances. Some retirees are seeing bigger checks, but did you know higher benefits could also mean higher taxes? And if you don't have a plan, you could end up paying more than you might expect. That's where Mosley Wealth Management comes in. Social Security is an important part of your retirement, but making simple mistakes like claiming benefits at the wrong time could cost you your hard-earned money. With more than 30 years of experience, the Mosley Wealth Management team can show you ways to get more out of your benefits and keep more of your money. Call 855-526-1600 now to set up your Social Security analysis at one of our 5 California locations. Don't put this off. Every decision you make about Social Security matters. Call 855-526-1600 today. That's 855-526-1600. Don't miss this chance to build a better plan for your retirement. Investment advisory services offered by duly registered individuals through Mosley Wealth Management, Inc. License number 0K76766. Firm does not offer tax advice.
Hey, everybody. Welcome on back to Right on the Money. I'm your host, Dana Wright, and we are sitting down again with the president of Mosley Wealth Management, Tom Mosley. And I want to tell everybody from time to time, Tom and I will get to talking off the air, and we get to sharing stories. And some of those stories are so important that we take a little detour because we think it's important that you hear some of the real life scenarios that are going on out there when it comes to your money and protecting your money. Tom, you have seen fraud. You have stopped fraud when clients come in with this story or that they're chasing after the next big thing. And I want to tell you what happened to my broadcast partner, okay?
Right.
He was sitting at his computer and his computer froze. And something popped up on his laptop. He's 54 years old, by the way, completely sound mind and body. And it said, call Microsoft. There's an issue with your computer. So he called the number. And that is red flag number 1. He called a third-party number, and a woman picked up the phone and said, Microsoft, can I help you? And Scott said, yes, my computer just froze up. Tom, they kept him on the phone for 40 minutes, and unbeknownst to him, they were farming every bit of information out of his computer in real time. And we want to warn people about this because Scott said to me, Tom, why I never gave them my credit card number. It doesn't matter. They had him key in a certain number of keystrokes. They said, press this and then hold this and then press this. and they said, we're going to get your computer unfrozen. And he said, okay. And you could hear him typing on the other end. That gave them complete third-party access to his computer, his banking, everything on your computer. And I've got to share that story with our listeners, Tom, because they about wiped him clean.
You also need to be careful when somebody calls you and you do pick up the phone, because like I've got customers, I've got clients. And so when the phone rings, my wife says, don't answer it if you don't recognize the number.
Yep.
Sounds good, but I've got people who do call me, and it's important for me to be able to answer the phone. So I do pick up the phone. Be careful saying yes. Be careful saying very much, because now with AI, artificial intelligence, they can take your voice and mimic it and make you say almost anything if they get enough of your voice online or over the phone, that
Yes.
kind of thing. So be careful. The other day, I also they said, "Hey, hello, we're calling. We want to help you. We're from," and they named the health insurance company that I have my Medicare Advantage with, or my Medicare supplement with. And then I sort of didn't know for sure whether I trusted this or not. And then they said, "Can you give us your social security number?" And I said, "Absolutely not." And I said, "If you are really with my health insurance company, you know all about me. You know my social security number. This is a scam." Click, the line went dead.
Yes, it did.
So you've got to be careful and don't trust people when they tell you they're necessarily from somewhere, because they're really not necessarily from those places. They're just trying to get your information. And once they capture that information, they can run with it.
And so, Tom, I will tell you this. Police said to us last week, the best advice, because once the money's gone, you are never getting it back. It is overseas, is to never, ever take a phone call and give that information out, just like you said. They were asking Scott a bunch of yes and no questions. They wanted his voice. And so I'm glad you brought that up. And never, ever, when someone reaches out to you, call them back, because 9 times out of 10, that's a scam. And Tom, you've helped clients with this, probably right at the very edge, right before they lose everything.
Yes, we do. And sometimes we don't get there before they go off the edge. Recently, we had a lady lost $12,000. And what you've got to be careful for is when they call and it sounds too good to be true. Remember what mom said? It probably is. And there's a time limit on it. You got to do this because in Nigeria, they're going to do something by midnight tomorrow night. And if we have your money, you're in on it. And if we don't have your money, you're not in on it. Don't believe that kind of stuff. And be careful. We had a lady was going to send $50,000 a couple of years to an African entity because she had met this person. Where'd you meet this person? Online.
Yep.
Be careful. Some of you are lonely out there. Don't let somebody online befriend you and you trust them enough to send them a large sum of money. Be careful.
Tom, and a lot of the people that this happens to, they said, I would never do that. I would never do that. And then we had a woman in Kansas City wiring Brad Pitt $50,000 because she was so sure Brad Pitt needed money because he didn't want anyone else to know because he was embarrassed. Tom, she wired this person $50,000 and lost all of it. And I assure you, it was not Brad Pitt on the other end of that line.
But Brad, if you're out there listening, I know you need the 50 to keep your face looking so good, as old as you're getting, but just kidding, Brad. Just kidding. All right. Please give us a call, Brad. We'll be glad to help you.
So one of the things we talk about when you look at the 4 pillars of a sturdy retirement, the first pillar in that sturdy retirement blueprint is protection. And so we talk about protection in your retirement plan and all of the things at Mosley Wealth Management they will protect your assets from. Fraud is just one of them, Tom, when we talk about protecting your money.
Let me give you something real technical that all of you need to do, that if you hadn't done this in the last 3 or 4 years, it might not have been available to you. They are in most of the big insurance companies, most of the big investment companies. We work through the investment custodian of Charles Schwab, and they're asking for a trusted contact. Now, that trusted contact does not control your assets. They can't even find out how much money you have. But if Schwab or Mosley Wealth Management, if we get to a point where we feel like cognitively you're not
Yep.
Functioning as well as you should be functioning. Folks, this happens, particularly if you're by yourself, if you're single, or you're a widow, and or you've lost your spouse. Be careful. Put down a trusted contact so that those who do care about you can contact someone and they can affirm the fact that you're still doing well, that you're still able to make good decisions. We run into a lot of people, Dana, who grow to the point where they can't make good logical decisions anymore, and it's not always the people who call. Like I've said on this show before, it's sometimes your relative, it's your
Yep.
nephew, it's your child that takes advantage of you, spends all of your money. I remember when I first got into this, like 25 years ago, this lady in Garden Grove put her daughter on as a signer on her checking account.
Mm.
And she got to a point where she needed some medication to fight cancer that she had to pay for. She went to her checking account and she came to find out that her daughter had already spent the money out of the checking account on
Mm.
drugs, but not the drugs for the cancer, but for other drugs. So be careful sharing those things. Be careful even against your own family. I've read stories before, and it's come out in statistics that most of the abuse of elders comes from family members or trusted friends.
Yep.
So be very careful about that. Protect yourself, not just against market volatility that we talk about
Yep.
or your emotions, but you got to protect yourself against your family sometimes, because when they find out you've got assets, they see those as their assets sometimes, and you got to be careful. It's not just taxes or choices you make. Sometimes it's people that are close to you that will, cause you to need to be even more protected.
Well, and Tom, I want to talk to our listeners who have recently lost a parent and are widows, because we have had situations here where people will read the obituaries. This is so sad. A good friend of mine lost her mom, and they came over one day to see their dad, and he said, "Well, I can't really stay long. I've got an appointment." And he was a retired physician, Tom, in a really wealthy part of town, and they said, "Who's your appointment with?" And he said, "Well, I'm getting solar panels put on the roof." He was Tom, he was 88, 89 years old. And there are companies that will read the obituaries and come knocking on the door. And you said this earlier, Tom, people are lonely. People are lonely, and they will sit and talk to you for an hour. And before you know it, you've got solar panels on your roof you never needed.
I had a gardener one time in West Anaheim, and the lady just recently passed away within the past 6 months. But about 10 years ago, this gardener, before we caught her doing this, because she was doing it out of an outside account that wasn't with Mosley Wealth Management, but that gardener had hit her up. Her family found out once we alerted her family to this fact, had hit her up for $62,000 worth of repairs that were never done. And she wasn't able to go outside and look at those things. Hey, we would build a retirement blueprint for you. But more than that, if you call our number and you either text that number and you text visit, or you call and say, I want to sit down with one of the advisors at Mosley Wealth Management. As you said earlier, we're in Encino, we're in Arcadia, we're in Ontario, Anaheim with our main office, San Diego. We're all over Southern California. We'll sit down with you and build you a plan, but protection is that first pillar that we will look at. And protecting not just against the financial things that could go wrong, but the other, would you call them physical things that could go wrong, of people trying to take your money. We'll do everything in our power to help protect you, but we can't help you if you don't reach out. Some of you have been listening to the show. I had a guy in the office 2 weeks ago, Dana, and he said, I've been listening for 2 years and I should have come in earlier. Well, you woulda, coulda, shouldas out there. You need to pick up the phone and call the number Dana will give you and come in and meet with us.
855-526-1600. If for no other reason, I've been doing this a long time, Tom, and I'd never heard of the trusted person contact. That would save so much headache. And again, they don't have access to your money, but if someone's trying to sell you $100,000 worth of stuff, that person would get a call and say, hey, are we sure about this? Just one of the services that they provide at Mosley Wealth Management. Please text VISIT to 855-526-1600, and let's start helping you lay that retirement blueprint. And Tom, I want to remind everybody, this doesn't have to be overwhelming. Stop putting it off. You bring in some statements, you can dump that stuff on your desk for all you care. It doesn't have to be an overwhelming proposition here.
Exactly.
855-526-1600, and we're back with much more right on the money straight ahead.
Legacy planning isn't just about numbers, it's about impact. Let Mosley Wealth Management help you create something that lasts for generations. Call 855-526-1600 to begin your legacy journey. Quarters, just 25 cents. That's hardly anything, right? But the team at Mosley Wealth Management see quarters a little differently. A quarter is a lot when it's a quarter of your retirement savings. Do you want to pay 25% or more in taxes during your retirement? Mosley Wealth Management can create a plan to help address that. If the only time you think about taxes is when you file them, you don't have a tax strategy. But it's not too late to get one with help from the Mosley Wealth Management team. With more than 30 years of experience, they can help make sure you're not paying a quarter, dime, or even a penny more than you should. Call Mosley Wealth Management now at 855-526-1600 to schedule your personalized tax strategy session at one of their 5 California locations. A quarter saved is a quarter earned. Call 855-526-1600 now. Investment advisory services offered by duly registered individuals through Mosley Wealth Management, Inc., license number 0K76766. Firm may not give tax advice.
Welcome back to Right on the Money with President of Mosley Wealth Management, Tom Mosley. I'm your host, Dana Wright. We're going to be talking about some pillars of retirement today. We mentioned one already, that is protection. Tom, protecting your money. But you have to have all four so you don't fall flat. And at Mosley Wealth Management, you are going to help maintain a blueprint, a foundation for everyone's retirement, Tom.
You know, we mentioned when we did talk about protection, we really went overboard talking about protecting against people who would come after your money. But we also, in that retirement blueprint, just to touch on it one more thing, we protect you against paying excessive taxes, and we protect you against healthcare costs and make sure you have the right coverage when it comes to Medicare. And if you need long-term care, either a policy or a plan, those are the kind of things. Some people see the value of having a little $15,000 or $20,000 life insurance policy that will pay for their burial costs so that that burden is not on their family. And, you know, you protect everything else. You protect your house, you protect your car, you protect your life, you protect your health, and we also can protect your income so that you have guaranteed income for life through what used to be called pensions, but now they're called annuities because you have to set them up yourselves in most cases. So just to wrap protection, that first pillar, you got to protect yourself against all the things that will come after you, not just from a personal standpoint, but from a financial standpoint as well.
We could do hours just on tax protection alone. Please text visit to 855-526-1600 if you're worried about taxes in retirement, and most people should be. Let's move on to growth potential and talk about the growth potential in retirement, because money is essential in retirement, Tom, and there's the possibility you will need more of it. Is there a way to grow your money outside of the investments that you've already made in the markets?
Well, most people can't afford, Dana, to not grow their money. I mean, if you've got, $60 million and you live off of $1,000 a month, and don't think that that's really too extreme, because there's a lot of situations where it's close. I'm working right now with a gentleman who's got $40 million worth of assets.
Yeah.
And actually a little bit north of that. And he literally spends about $800 a month. He has no heirs. So ladies, if you're looking for a guy to marry, no, just, for the right, never would I give out anybody's name. That is just a joke. But that person doesn't necessarily need to grow his money. Okay.
Right.
But most of you who are out there listening, if you're going to retire at 63, 64, 67, 68, somewhere along that 60, maybe even 70 range, how long are you going to live? How long does the amount, your assets that you've collected so far, how long do you plan on that lasting you? Most people can't afford to just call it quits with growth and put it into a CD or put it into something solid. But you say, well, I would like to be a little safer with my money. I'm okay with making a good solid income, but they come back and they say this phrase over and over, Dana, I just don't want to lose it.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, you've worked all your life for that and you still need to grow it, but you bigger than that, you don't want to lose it. I liken it. I'm an old football coach. I'm old and I used to coach football. Okay. And I liken it to the fact that when you're 40, when you're 30, you're playing offense. I mean, throw the ball deep. Let's put points on the
Right.
board. Let's score. When you get to the age of 70, 75, you're trying to play defense. You're trying to play preservation. You should be. You should be trying to say, I don't want to lose it, but I don't know how long I'm going to live. And for those of you who are married, you don't know how long your surviving spouse is going to live, and they're going to
Right.
lose the lower Social Security. They may lose some other things, and their experience is going to be about, they're going to need about 85 to 90% of what it takes for both of you to live, for just one of them to live. So they're going to need almost the same amount of money. So you're going to need growth. Well, there's some things out there. There's some growth annuities. We've got a growth annuity right now while I'm taping this show.
Yeah.
We've got a growth annuity that pays 14% real money bonus for you to bring that money over.
Wow.
I mean, you bring over $100,000, that's a $14,000 bonus right off the bat.
Wow.
Bring over a $2 million like a gentleman did recently, and that's a $280,000 bonus right off the bat. Over a 10-year period, that's a 1.4% gain automatically up front. And then whatever you make on the annuity, you can grow out of that. You say, well, can you access that? You can access 10% of many annuities from the very beginning, or at least after the first year in all of them that we use. You can access 10% of whatever you put into that annuity every single year after that. So yes, it's safe growth. This is a fixed indexed annuity, not the variables that everybody hates, okay? That are basically just in the market with the extra insurance fee if you're on a variable annuity. But a fixed indexed annuity allows you to have a solid base that's supported and backed up by the strength of that insurance company. Make sure you understand that. You put your money in there, they give you bonuses. Sometimes they double the payout. If you hit 2 of the 6 activities of daily living, you can't feed yourself, clothe yourself, bathe yourself. You hit 2 of those, they'll double the monthly payout or annual payout for
Wow.
that. So there's all kind of advantages, ways you can grow your money. But again, it's not a matter, here's the big key here. It's not a matter of putting all your money in that one basket, but maybe having that basket as part of your variety of baskets as you diversify your portfolio, even in retirement.
So I want to move on then to the next pillar, because all of that is so critically important, Tom. Let's talk about income in retirement. And we touched on that a little bit. Social Security could be one small part of that income. We hope that it's not your entire enchilada with the state of affairs with Social Security coming down the pike. But what are the other important things that you help your clients with respect to income? Where to draw it down, how to draw it down. We hope if you're listening, you have a pension, Tom. I do, but those are becoming more and more rare for income in retirement.
Let's do it by the numbers. 41% of the average American's household income in 2023 came from Social Security. 41%.
Wow.
You've got to do it right. Please, everybody listen. You say, me? Yeah, every single person out there has an optimal time when you should take your Social Security. Don't listen necessarily to Bob at the water cooler or Sally in the break room or even your brother Bubba, the plumber, who may all be doing it absolutely correctly for themselves, but it might not be the right timing to take Social Security for you. That's why, as part of building a retirement blueprint that we offer, if you call and leave us a voicemail or you text visit to the number that Dana gives out on this show, if you text visit to that or call and leave us a voicemail, come in and sit with us. We'll give you a Social Security analysis. We'll also look at your pension. By the numbers, 16% of you still have a pension like you do, Dana. And in California, because we have so many civil servants, we have policemen, teachers, people who work for the government.
Yep.
It's a little bit larger in California than normal. Well, I've seen statistics where as many as 27% of the people in California are covered by a pension. You've got to do that right, because that again is income flow. And then if you add your pension, you add your Social Security, and there's still a gap, but you want to insure it, there's no better vehicle out there that's guaranteed to be there for as long as you live, like an annuity. Guaranteed by whom? By the insurance company that backs up the annuities. Guaranteed payout for life. Listen to this. Even after you run out of your money. It's an insurance against living too long. So you may want to fill that gap. You can fill it by staying in the market, but you're going to ride the roller coaster there. But if you want guaranteed income for life, you're going to need to look and open your mind to that fixed indexed annuity so that you can solve that income issue. And I think those are the key issues you really need to look at when it comes to income.
Annuities. Pick up the phone and call or text visit to 855-526-1600, because I think, Tom, a lot of people think, I've got a 401k, I'm fine. I don't need annuities. I don't need this. I don't have the pension, but I've got a 401k. I always want to remind everyone, having a 401k is great. It does not create the entire foundation for retirement that you will create for your clients with that retirement blueprint.
Yeah, I had a guy in the office just 3 weeks ago or so, and he was in with his wife, and he told me, he said, I hate annuities. I said, okay, why do you hate annuities? He said, well, a guy at work told me that annuities were bad. And his wife spoke up and she said, look at your mom. Your mom is 95 years old and she still gets a check every single month from that annuity. And he looked at me and he said, yeah, and that annuity sustains her. It is an insurance against living too long. When you're 95 and you're out of money in your 401k and your IRA, you are going to appreciate the value of a fixed indexed annuity.
So let's get on to the fourth pillar, Tom. It is liquidity. Yes, that is important for your retirement plan. How much of your retirement savings, for folks listening, should be liquid, emergency fund money, all of those things if the water heater breaks, or God forbid there's a devastating medical issue, Tom?
You know what? That's one of the biggest mistakes people make in retirement. Life still happens, and I call it life.
Yep.
Because life is the hot water heater leaking, okay? Life is the roof leaking. Life is the pipe leaking that's over the kitchen sink. You know, life happens. The car, the hose leaks on the car. The transmission fluid leaks on the driveway, okay? Life is full of leaks. You've got to be prepared to deal with those things. Even in retirement, life keeps happening. So don't ignore the fact that you need liquidity. Dana, you asked the question, how much? I'm going to have to sit down across the table, and my advisors are going to have to sit down across the table with you and ask you, how much do you want in your emergency fund? Because every one of you, as part of a retirement blueprint, need an emergency fund, and we'll help you build it. Emergency fund, your income, inflation, investments, taxes, healthcare, legacy. We'll address all of those things and more, but you've got to call in and get on our schedule.
Do it now. Protection, growth potential, income, and liquidity. Let them help you build your retirement blueprint. 855-526-1600. Do not try to do this by yourself, folks. 855-526-1600. You can text VISIT to 855-526-1600. You're listening to Right on the Money with Tom Mosley of Mosley Wealth Management.
Hey, be happy, be blessed. We'll see you next week, same time, same station.
Mosley Wealth Management is an independent financial services firm that utilizes a variety of investment and insurance products. Investment advisory services offered by duly registered individuals through Mosley Wealth Management, Inc., MWM, and Mosley Insurance and Financial Services are affiliated companies by common ownership. License number 0K767766. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual's situation. Mosley Wealth Management, Inc. is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein, provided by third parties, have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Mosley Wealth Management. This radio show is a paid placement.